Hold it up close to you now.
Can you hear me now?
We've been really excited about this night. Our board's waited about 3 months to get Sister DeWitt to come speak to us tonight, and I have really enjoyed the few visits that we've had on the phone, and know several people that have listened to her presentation in the past that have just ranted and raved about it. So I think this is going to be a great experience for all of us. A little bit about Sister DeWitt that I didn't know before tonight. She's the area canning coordinator. So she's the coordinator over 51 states. It goes clear to Blythe and down here to Gilbert. And that's just amazing. She's a very busy woman, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot from her. She's had this calling for 5 years, but she's been teaching this particular class for 15 years. She has a degree from ASU, and she's been married for 35 years. She has 6 children and 15 grandchildren. So we just are really excited about tonight, and turn the time over to Sister DeWitt.
Tracy, just put it on the floor.
Are you filming? Good evening, brothers and sisters. I am really excited to be here tonight. First thing I'm going to ask you is, how many of you...
Why you just get my microphone?
Oh, I'm going to do 2 of them.
No joke.
Thank you.
Let's see. I think I'm blushing. Oh, yeah, this is really strange. All right. We can do it. Oh, my gosh. All right. Get over it. How many of you have a cell phone? Raise your hands. Woohoo! How many of you have a year's supply of food? Raise your hands. All right. I used to ask why you don't have your food storage. First off, I teach this class all over, probably 4, 5, 6 times a month for the last 5 years. So I have been all over and talked to hundreds and hundreds of people, and it's usually the same response. Just a few hands go up. When I was called to this position, one of the things that I was, I asked, what is it? The area canning coordinator, and they said, well, you do this and this and this, but part of your calling, and the biggest part, is that you are to inspire and motivate the saints in the area to get their food storage. And I laughed and said, 60 years of prophets have had no effect on them, and I'm going to tell them something? So, right off the bat, self-esteem went down. I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with this calling. I ended up doing this class. And I want to tell you right off the bat that this class is not sanctioned by the church. I'm not here under the authority of Salt Lake City or anything like that. I'm a mom. I'm a grandma. I've been doing food storage for a long time. And this is, bottom line, the way I do food storage. If you don't like it, brothers and sisters, please, is my phone number on that book? Please don't call me and tell me what a bad idea this is or how that's not going to work. There's 100 ways to do food storage. This is one. It's only one. If you like it, use it. If you don't like it, think how much you paid for the book. And it was worth every penny. All right. Now, I used to ask, why don't people have their food storage? And I always got the same answers. And so I came up with my own kind of a Dave Letterman style top reasons why I don't have my food storage. And I'm only going to do 5 because it's an hour-and-a-half class and it takes every minute of that. So we're going to do the top 5 reasons. Number 5, my neighbors have a 2-year supply. No, they don't. 80% of the members of the church have no food storage. So if your plan has been to everybody's going to gather at the stake center and everybody's going to bring their food and we'll all share and Elijah's barrel will never empty and we'll all be happy, this is a bad plan. Because 80% of you aren't going to bring anything, but you're still going to show up to eat. So if this is your plan, get a new one. Number 4, I paid tithing for 20 years. The church can owe me a little food. Another misconception is that the church is storing food. We have silo grains all over the nation and all this food. In fact, there's this secret city under Salt Lake. They drive the little golf carts. There is a secret city, but they have no food there. It's just little, how many of you know about the secret city under Salt Lake? Okay. Some people look at me like, what? Yeah, there really is. but they're not storing food. All the food that the church has right now, all their stores across the nation, would feed 4% of the members of the church. Not the nation, but the members of the church. So here's another plan that is bad. If you're waiting for the church to store your food, you need a new plan. Both of these lessons are telling you nobody is storing food for you. And you're not storing food for yourself. So this is really a perfect time with all of the things that have been going on in the South. If people had had preparations, if they had had even 72-hour kits, this would not be happening. So we need to understand that the times are getting bad. We need to have our food. Number 3, I can't afford scrapbooking and food storage. The guys don't get this, but the girls do. You know what I'm talking about. The food storage program that you have in your hands, your little book, I wrote that probably 15 years ago, and I've expanded on it the last 5 years a lot. And what you've got in there, a lot of information, but bottom line here is the food storage program will cost you about $1 a day per person. Now I asked you who had cell phones because almost everybody has a cell phone. If you say I can't afford food storage, but you can afford a cell phone, something's wrong with your priorities. $1 a day. President Benson said the commandment to store food may be as essential to your temporal salvation as boarding the ark was in the days of Noah. Brothers and sisters, that's life and death. $1 a day. Your child's temporal salvation has to be worth $1 a day. So, make it a priority. Don't use money as an excuse. I'm not saying that everybody's wealthy, but honestly, I drive through your neighborhoods to get to these classes. I have never once driven past a mud hut. Never. They always are homes with 2-3 car garages. We live in the richest society in the history of the world. We have to be able to set priorities and say, I can afford $1 a day to save my child's life. Number 2, I'm waiting for the cannery to sell Papa John's dehydrated pizza. Food storage has a real stigma, and it's unfortunate. A lot of times when they're talking to me about doing this class, they'll say, now we'd like to have refreshments afterwards, and they almost always say, we thought we'd have, what are you having tonight? Pardon me? Good, okay. You're not having pinto bean fudge. I mean, it's inevitable. We're going to have dehydrated apple crisp, you know, an apple cobbler with dehydrated apples and pinto bean fudge. And I'm going, guys, if you're going to make fudge, don't put pinto beans in it. Make real fudge. Put pinto beans in your chili. Food storage has a stigma that it's got to be something made out of wheat, and it doesn't. Food storage program you've got in your hands has things like chicken Alfredo, beef stew, tamale pie, rice pudding, chocolate chip cookies. You name it, brothers and sisters. There are very few things that you can't put in a food storage with this type of a program. And we'll get into that a little further. And the number one reason why I don't have my year supply of food, I've got a job, 4 kids, going to school, 2 church callings. I just don't have time for my family's temporal salvation. Honestly, this is the number one reason. How many of you knew that this was going to be on food storage? I got to tell you, I'm always amazed that anybody shows up. How much boring can it get than food storage? I just go, I wouldn't go to a thing on food storage. You've been hearing about it for 60 years, if you're that old. Nobody's listening. Why would you come? Because you want to do it. I know you want to do it. You want to obey the prophet. It's just so overwhelming. How much is a year's supply? How much is it going to cost? Where do I put it? You're looking at this powdered milk and beans and wheat and salt, and you go, what can I make out of that? What's for dinner? It's overwhelming. Hopefully tonight, with the program that I'm going to give you, some of that will go away. That you will be able to say, hey, food storage makes sense. This is easy. I can do this. In fact, a lot of people have gotten real excited about food storage when they put it in the context of what we're going to do tonight. All right. Program isn't right or wrong. It is, you know, like I say, it's just the way I do food storage. Whether you're going to do 1-month kits, how many of you, does anybody not know what a 1-month kit is? That's one person. Where are you? Back in the back doesn't know what a 1 month kit. Comes in 2 boxes. It will feed 1 adult for 1 month. 7.5 cups of food per day. This will sustain life. Brothers and sisters, if you have no food storage, this is what you start with. You get a 1 month kit. If you want to live 2 months, you get 2 1 month kits. It's a simple process. The church made this so easy. It's the no-brainer to stay alive. And you know what? They want you to stay alive. I guarantee the Lord wants you to stay alive. 2 things are going to happen if you don't get your food storage. You're going to suffer really, really bad, and then you're going to die. And then you're going to go before the Lord, and He's going to be really mad at you because He needed you here. I don't need you up there. I've got Abraham and Joseph Smith and everybody you can name. I've got the leadership up here. I needed you down there. I trained you. I gave you wealth. I gave you health. I gave you everything that you could do to survive so that you could help bring forth Zion. And here you are dead because you didn't get your food supply. Because honestly, brothers and sisters, nobody's storing food for you. Nobody's storing food at all. So please, 1 month kits, that's the way to start. That will sustain life. Now, I did sustain life long, long time ago. So I got way beyond that. I got to where I'm looking at all this salt, wheat, and the basics, and I'm going, what's for dinner? I wanted more than that. So when you get to the point that you've got the basics and you want to go on, this is where you start with this book. It's based on worst case scenario. I'm a detail person, and it just, I thought, well, what if there's a flood? What if there's an earthquake? What if there's a nuclear war? What if? And so I just gave it the worst case scenario. I said, if we lost all electricity, lost all water, all power from the city, if I was on my own in my backyard, could I survive and feed my family? In the summertime, I would probably kill myself, so I don't need a whole year's supply, maybe just 6 months. But in the wintertime, we can survive. And that's the program here. We've got a solar oven for cooking. We've got all kinds of foods that are pre-cooked or prepared or whatever, and you can, with the water storage, who thought that up? Raise your hand. That cool thing back there. You are cool. I am so impressed. I walked in and went, look at that. I'm taking this home, and I'm going to, in fact, I'll probably start, can I put it in my book? I'll get your name and put your credit on there because, we all get so much credit for what we do. Pay you later, like I get paid. All right. You can survive. That's the whole program here, worst case scenario. I can feed my family 365 days with what I've got in my house if everything else shut down. Now, if everything doesn't shut down, I'm going to be dancing in the street thinking I've got a stove that all I have to do is turn on the heat, and I've got running water, but I'm not planning on that. I'm planning on a New Orleans scenario without all the water. We're not going to get a flood here, I wouldn't think. Okay, the system. In your book, and you don't have to turn to it right now, but page, probably the last page there. No, it's not. You guys didn't get an index, did you? There's no index page. Yeah, you'll just have to guess where everything is in the book. Whoever got the book from me, let's get an index page, because there should have been an index page, and we'll make up copies and just give them to whoever wants them. So leaders, get with me and we'll get that, because that's kind of an important page. The system itself is really, really simple, and it's what I taught for 15 years. Like 10 years ago, I was just teaching this, and that was kind of a neat system on how much is a year's supply of food. You are going to choose 7 meals that your family likes, 7 breakfasts and 7 dinners. My husband said, where's lunch? I said, honey, we're going to get up late, we're going to go to bed early. I'm not doing lunch. So if you want to do lunch, have a good time, do whatever you want, but I just do breakfast and dinner. We've got, if you're doing dinner, now you can choose 7 dinners, 7 breakfasts. You multiply it by 52. There's 52 weeks in the year. If spaghetti's one of your meals, you're going to have it 52 times over the year's time. Okay, 52 weeks times 52. Let's say it takes a pound of spaghetti and a jar of ragu to feed your family. You're going to buy 52 pounds of spaghetti noodles and 52 jars of ragu. You've got a year's supply. Move to your next recipe. Everything in it, you multiply by 52, you've got a year's supply. It's just that simple. Now you know down to the teaspoon of salt how much is a year's supply for your family. My personal food storage has 14 dinners, 9 breakfasts, and about 12 desserts. Chocolate cake, chocolate pudding, chocolate brownies, chocolate chip cookies. You know, your imagination is just about the only thing that's going, and your budget will be the time out there. But really, there are so many things that can be part of your supply. I like soups and stews and chilies because they're very simple to eat, to cook in the solar oven. They're one-pot meals, they're filling, they're not real expensive. You just can't have steak and baked potatoes. It's just not going to work. But there are a lot of things out there that you would never have thought could be food storage. So in the book, you're going to see lots of recipes. Probably 14 different dinner recipes, Parmesan chicken and beef stew and all kinds of interesting things that you wouldn't have thought can be food storage. You are welcome to use the recipes. Absolutely go for it. Keep in mind, they are very basic recipes. My chili may not be half as good as your Grandma Ethel's chilies recipe. So what I'd like you to do is use the recipes to see what kind of things can be used, what kind of things, how to cook them in a solar oven. Like if you've got a killer recipe for chili, go ahead and see how mine works, how much it makes, how long it takes, and then use yours to do the 50 times 52. So if you're doing your own recipes, on page 21 of your book, when you're doing your own recipes, let's say you're making that chili and it takes a pound of pinto beans and a tablespoon of chili powder, a couple of the things that are in there. You're going to say, all right, on this sheet of paper that is, you know what, that's the equivalencies. You didn't get a shopping list either, guys. I'm so sorry. See, I never know what's going to show up. You'll have to make your own shopping list. Start with A, apples, apricots, blah, 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 all the way down to yeast or whatever you have in it. Typical things that are going to be in your food storage. Do it on the computer so you can move everything around if you get it alphabetically out of line, and then print it up after you get that. But you've got probably a 3-page sheet of all these different things. Let's say pinto beans. You put down pinto beans, you're going to have 52 pounds of pinto beans and 52 tablespoons of chili powder for your chili recipe. You're going to go to the equivalencies page after you've got all your ingredients from all your recipes on your shopping list. You just, say like, if you have salt, and the first recipe takes 52 teaspoons, and the next one takes 26. You go 52, 26, Every recipe that you put down, you're going to keep a running tally of the salt, sugar, anything that goes in it. When you're done, you're going to be able to add that up and say, my whole year supply for all of my meals, I need 487 teaspoons of salt. Woo, okay, you go to this equivalencies page on 21, which you do have, and you see salt says that 1.5 tablespoons in an ounce, one of those containers of salt, is 26 ounces, equals 39 tablespoons or 117 teaspoons. So you're going to know by that and everything else that is on here exactly how many containers of salt, how many cans of apples, everything that's on there. This is a pretty concise list of things that go in food storage. So using this, you'll be able to translate your recipes into cans of apples, tablespoons of salt, or how many containers of salt. Okay, any questions about the system itself? Pretty simple, isn't it? See, that used to be my whole class. I'd be done by now. All right. Make your own menus. I take the little cards because I'll answer questions and then I get off track and I don't want to forget anything. Yes, sir?
Sister DeWitt, is there anything else, I know this is a great comprehensive list, is there any source like on the computer for other items that have equivalencies?
No, because I did those all by myself with my little teaspoon and my little cup and everything, one by one. My children thought I was obsessed. They were going to send me to a psychologist. And I didn't, because I wasn't doing this at the time. I was just doing my own food storage. So that's just, you'll have to sit down with your teaspoon and your little 4th cup and do your own. You're welcome. All right. Where do you store your supply of food? People have come up with all kinds of ingenious things, little tables with tablecloths over the top, and there's 500 pounds of wheat under it, and you'd never guess. You don't have to do that. A whole year's supply for one person using this kind of a system will fit into 10 of the boxes like you get from the cannery that holds the 6 number 10 cans. 10 boxes fit under a twin-size bed. It's perfect. I mean, it just slides right under there. You've got your whole year's supply under one bed. You want to keep everything, well, let's see. Twin-size bed, don't store in the garage. You do not want your food in the garage, with the exception of a few items. Wheat is one of them. You can store wheat in your attic where it gets to be 180 degrees. Really, really hot, really, really cold, wheat does fine. So don't think that you have to keep your wheat in the house. Sugar, you can keep that outside. Toilet paper, that's about it. Everything else you should keep inside. Don't can baking powder or baking soda. Don't do anything to those. Leave them in their original containers because they tend to blow up. So keep that in mind. Sugar, don't can your sugar. I know it comes canned, but they have to do that for FDA regulations, things like that. Sugar doesn't go bad. It goes hard. You get a baseball bat, give it a tap, it's back, it's no problem. Keep sugar, get those big buckets, the big 5-gallon buckets, and either line it with plastic and pour the sugar in if you want to save space, or just put the sugar bags in there and then just put the lid on it. And your sugar is good forever. It just doesn't, I shouldn't say forever, years and years, 15, 20 years, your sugar should stay good. It's wasting money to put it in a can and put a packet in it. It costs you $1 to do that, so don't can your sugar. I know you do that in the 1-month kits, but if you're not going to do the 1-month kits, if you're going to do the 7 meals, then you will get specifically what you want. 1-month kits, it gives you a whole can of sugar and a whole can of wheat. That sugar is just not going to, it's going to far outlast the wheat. So decide how you want to do that. Rotation was always a problem. I'd go in and I'd think, I got 50 pounds of spaghetti here somewhere, and it's just not there. Or things go bad. You go in there and you go, oh, I didn't know that was 27 years old. I have powdered milk that's 27 years old. You know what? It's still good. It was Milkmaid or something like that. It's still good. So, don't throw anything out until you look at it. And honestly, sometimes you'll open something up and it smells bad. Oats are notorious for that. Yeah, it smells bad. Doesn't mean it is bad. Unless it's green and crawling away. Just put it in a large container, shake it up, let it air out. 90% of the time it will come back. It's just taken on the smell of the can. So please, when you open things, don't assume it's bad. Give it a little time, a few days to air out. Let's see, the rotation. Everything that I do in this rotation system is based on long shelf life. I'm all about how long can I make this last, because that means I don't have to rotate it very often. The shortest shelf life I have is 3 years, and that's potato pearls and powdered milk. And quite honestly, if you keep it in a cool, dark place or dry place, it will last longer. I have powdered milk and potato pearls that are 5 years old, and they're still good. Sometimes the potato pearls will go a little dark. We call them toasted. So, they still taste good. Yes?
Since a lot of us don't have basements here.
I know. Usually I say a cool, dark place. I'll go, where is there a cool, dark place in the Valley of the Sun? Unless you're dead.
Yeah, 75, 80 degrees, typical house temperature.
Oh yeah, you're fine. You're fine. Yep, 80 degrees, anywhere between 78 and 82, depending on if it's summer. Interesting that we can live with 78-degree weather when it's wintertime, but in the summertime we can live with 82. Anybody else do that? Just me? You can be really, really hot in the summer, and it's okay. Just turn that up a little more. Rotation. Back to rotation. The process here is you make all your list. You get your shopping list made up. You watch for the sales. This is a really great way to do it, because when spaghetti goes on sale, you go out and you buy your whole 52 pounds or whatever it is that you need. You get it on sale. In a timely manner, and I don't mean in a week or even a month, but in a timely manner, you buy all your food storage that's on your list. Keep your list with you wherever you go, and when you find things on sale, you'll know how much you bought and when you bought it. You're going to store under your beds. Whatever's under your bed cannot be more important than your family's temporal salvation, so take it out and put something else, put it somewhere else. You get your like potato pearls and powdered milk, things that have the shorter shelf life, keep them in the same area so that you're not, when it's time to rotate, you're not going through every room. You get a little book. The little book is your food storage book, and you're going to say 15 cans of powdered milk in September of '05. And it goes under the bed. Whatever else, it all goes under the bed, and you keep a list. Becky's room has all these different things, and John's room has this. Every year, say New Year's Day, you get your book out. You go through it and you say, oh, look, 3 years ago I canned powdered milk and potato pearls, and they're going to expire. They're not quite yet, but when they get close to expiration, I give it the 3 years, because it really does last longer if you take good care of it. Don't store it in your garage. You look at that and you say, well, I'm going to have to replace my powdered milk and my potato pearls because it's been 3 years. So you go in, you go to the cannery, You look at your list, you did 15 cans of oat or of potato pearls. You go to the cannery, you can 15 cans of potato pearls, you bring it back, you take the old stuff out, you put it in your pantry, your kitchen pantry, or you give it to your children or do whatever you want to do with it, and you put the fresh under the bed. You now have a whole year's supply, and once again, you've got 3 years to go, because most of the things in the food storage that you have here has a 5, 10, 20-year shelf life. Some of it is indefinite. So with this program, every 3 years is all you have to think about. It works for me because I'm not good at the little cards and the keeping track and the rolling shelves and the whole thing. It just didn't work for me. This works for me. I know that stuff is good until 2010. I know this is going to go bad next year. It's also a good idea to have a food storage slush fund. You're going to spend quite a bit of money on the front end of this. So what you want to do is, after you've purchased it all, take out, say, $10 a month. You know, that's less than going out to dinner, you know, much less. $10 a month, and you put it in your food storage slush fund. 3 years from now, you're going to have $360 to replace your powdered milk and your potato pearls. So it really doesn't even affect your budget. Just keep this little running budget going to replace your food storage as it needs it. All right, any questions about the rotation system? Yes?
How do you do spaghetti and pasta things so they don't go bad? Do you can those?
Anything that the cannery cans is the best way to do it. I don't like the bags. You know, I'm sorry to if anybody's got those Mylar bags. I just don't like them. They say that mice can't, you know, that nothing gets in them. We have a ranch outside of Sholo, and they made a nest in it. They fed off of it all winter long. So, yeah, the powder from the food on the outside of it attracts them, and they just nibble right through. And you could take a pencil and pop a hole in it just like that. It's just that simple. So I like the cans. They don't, you know, you have to keep them off the ground so they don't rust, but they're in your house on carpet most likely, so that shouldn't happen. But anything you can put in a can, I do, because it has a longer shelf life. All right, let's see. Moving on. We've got the basic foundation of this food storage. If you're not going to do this that I'm going to talk about, forget it. Go back to the 1 month kits, because you can't do this without going through this step. So deal with it. This is canned meat. Don't anybody make any rude comments or I'll take your book away. This is chicken and this is beef. And I know it doesn't look wonderful, but you know, tuna fish doesn't look that great if you put it in a jar, but it's still really good meat. You cannot buy meat that is this good. It's fully cooked and ready to eat. And this is the easiest process you will ever do. I can put up 100 pounds of meat in one day, from 8 in the morning until maybe 4 in the afternoon. 100 pounds. You figure if you have a pound of meat every day, in 3 days I could do my whole year's supply in 3 days using 2 canners. The process here is first off, when you get canned meat, like at Costco, you have a can of chicken, it's a 3-pound can. That can is going to last maybe 2 years because it's metal. The meat in this jar has a minimum 10 years shelf life. I say 10 years, we have meat that's 20 years old and it's still good. But I say 10 years because, you know, you can spend 3 days doing new meat every 10 years. So I give this a really long shelf life. You can can anything. Chicken, beef, moose, caribou, snake, anything you can get your hands on. If it's meat, you can can it. The exceptions are processed meats like hot dogs and bologna and turkey ham. You can't do those, they go mushy. The process here, you take raw meat. That's the beauty of it. Now, if you get a canner and you get the book, it's going to tell you to cook it first. Do what you want, but I don't do it that way. Neither do any of the people that I do this with. We would never cook it first because then it's double processed, and it's just not as good. Oh, let me finish with the can. If you get the can of chicken and you pay like $3 a pound, we have done the test. You get a pound of skin and bones, a pound of liquid, and a pound of meat. I got a full pound of chicken out of this. 1 pint holds a pound of meat. It makes its own juice. There's no water. There's nothing added to it but a little bit of salt. You take raw meat, you slam it in the jar, you do the process. It's in the book. Detailed instructions in the book. You don't even look at your instructions if you buy one of these, because the instructions in my book are better. They're more detailed. You're going to do everything you need to do with the lid, heat it and all that. You put it in a canner. You cook it for, it's 75 minutes for pints and an hour and a half for quarts. Quart holds 2 pounds of meat, pint holds 1 pound. You take it out, you wipe it off, you put it in the box, you shove it under the bed, and you've got your meat for your food storage, minimum 10 years. Fully cooked, ready to eat. It could not be simpler. Yes?
So you don't suggest rotating it, like using it?
That's the biggest problem, is that it's impossible not to use. It's so good, it's so convenient. I mean, you think about what you guys make. If you make chicken enchiladas, chicken soup, chicken delight, any kind of chicken salad sandwiches, chicken tacos, beef tacos, anything that you have meat, it's fully cooked and ready to eat. You open it up and you can have dinner in 15 minutes. So your biggest problem isn't having it sit under the bed, it's keeping it under the bed because you use it. So when meat goes on sale, I just go down, and that's the nice part too, everything goes on sale. You don't pay full price for anything. So it's time saving, it's money saving, and it's an amazing food storage, because with this, your food storage now includes beef stew, chicken delight, Parmesan chicken, taco pie, and just about anything. Enchiladas, you've got real meat. Your options are TVP. Has anybody had TVP? If you have a dog, even your dog won't eat TVP. And I'm not making a joke. Nobody can eat TVP. It's really disgusting. When you compare it to real meat. And I know it looks really strange. One girl called it a science experiment. I'm going, you know what? It is tender. It's delicious. It's absolutely amazing. And you bought it on sale. You can can it in 1 day, and it lasts minimum 10 years. So for food storage, this is a must. Yes?
I have 2 questions. Do you usually use, like, for your chicken breasts?
Anything.
Or anything?
I do, just because they're really easy and they've been really cheap lately, but boneless, skinless. But if you can do legs, I just don't like to use the space with bones because I'm not going to eat the bones. But it, you know, just depends on what you want to do. Someone else had a question.
Well, I have another question too. Your canner right there, you suggest using that kind of canner.
Okay, let's go to the canner.
But if you have a different kind of pressure canner, it still works okay?
This is 70 years old, 70. I bring this because it's a smaller one, and because it's an antique, and because it tells you it still works. If you buy a canner, you will hand it down to your grandchildren. They won't know what to do with it, but you'll hand it down to them. I mean, how many of you know how to can meat? This has been around for almost 100 years, and nobody knows how to do it. They look at this and they go, oh, they get all disgusted, and I'm just laughing, going, I know you buy tuna fish. I know you do. And that's all this is. It's just other kinds of meat that you have done yourself. The process could not be simpler, ladies and gentlemen. You know, you take the lid off. Buying a canner, I've already gone through the process, so I'm going to tell you what to buy. In the book, it gives you details on what kind of canner to buy. If you already have a canner and it has a gasket, the rubber gasket, then that's fine. You know, it's the first thing to go. If you don't have a canner, do not buy one with a gasket, because I guarantee at some point you're going to put all your meat in there and you're going to turn it on, and steam's going to pour out every place except where it should, because the gasket always goes bad. Get a metal-to-metal canner. First, I'm going to tell you the price. If you buy a brand new one, it's going to cost you $150 for a beautiful canner. It's just, I mean, it's gorgeous. It'll do double stacks of pints. You can do 7 quarts. It's beautiful. It's in the book, it's a 921, 21 quart. But I have since, when I used to tell people, don't bother buying a used one, just get a nice one, it'll last forever. I have since gone to eBay and bought 5 canners. Every one of them have worked perfectly, as long as it is metal to metal, meaning no rubber gasket. It has, when you get on eBay, if you're going to do it on eBay, look at the picture and you can tell. If it has a gauge on it, it has 5, 10, 15, that tells you how many pounds of pressure. It should have a release valve on it, over here, this type of thing. It should have the little wing nuts that will, you know, clamp down the lid. Pressure release. Inside, it should have a tray, because the bottles should not sit on the bottom of the canner. It should sit on a tray. And basically, those are just the 5 requirements. The 5 that I purchased ran between $50 to $70, and that included the shipping. So you can get a really good deal on eBay buying a used one. Or if you have, and if you're worried about it, the Extension Center will check them for free. ASU Extension Center, just call them and they'll check your canner for free. Question?
You know, it's not a pressure.
Has to be a pressure canner. For meat, you have to have pressure. Yeah, they've got the bath, the water bath, all those types of things. It has to be a pressure canner, has to be under 10 pounds of pressure for 90 minutes, the whole thing there. You don't cheat on that. If you ever, I've only had one jar in 10 years, 15 years of doing this, I've only had one jar that I opened up later and the seal was not, you know how if you hear this, okay, that means it's come undone. Don't even mess with it. Just throw it away. So do not take any chances. But if the lid is still good, it's not bulging, should be fine. Had a question?
Can you replace gaskets?
Yes. Go online and like if it's a Presto, just go online to Presto and ask them. I've got this model number. Can you send me a couple of gaskets? And that way you'll have them for.
So if you were to find one on eBay that used gaskets, it wouldn't be that bad of a risk?
I wouldn't. No, because they're not going to cost that much less on eBay. If you're looking at $50, it's just not worth having the hassle of having to keep gaskets around and wait for them to go bad, because they always go bad. Yes?
Can you use a regular pressure cooker then? Is that what you're saying?
A pressure cooker. The difference in a pressure cooker and a pressure canner, if you're looking on eBay, put in both names, because a lot of people don't know the difference. They call it a pressure canner when it's actually, or they call it a pressure cooker when it's actually a pressure canner. But it should be a pressure canner. But the requirements that I gave you make it a pressure canner. Some people have said that they've done that with pressure cookers. But I don't know how they get to 10 pounds of pressure, how they know that it's at 10 pounds, unless they've got the gauge and all the little things that go with it. So they may call it a pressure cooker. If it's got all these things, it's a pressure canner. Same. Any other questions about canning meat?
You said something about going to issues for them to check something.
Extension center. If you have a used canner and you're worried that it's not working or you're concerned, okay, in the old days, I know you've all heard stories about pressure canners blowing up and it killed Aunt Ethel and all 5 of her kids. It's just, you know what, the accidents did happen. They were generally gasket types and they weren't watching it. They walked away. This is, you know, a car can be dangerous too if you're not careful, but you just have to sit with it. You don't go to the movies while your pressure canner is cooking your meat. You stay right with it. So it's just not dangerous. We've been doing it forever. And if you're careful with it, it isn't dangerous, especially the new ones that have all of the release gauges and all the valves and things like that. So they're very safe. Just use common sense. All right, any questions about canning meats? Let's move on. Oh, I have some other things that I have to tell you. Look at my little things here. It doesn't take any liquid. Please don't call me and say, do I put water in this? It's just meat. You jam it in as far as you can. Don't cut it up into small pieces. If you put large pieces, you can always cut it up later. So hamburger, I put in raw also. And hamburger, if you broke the jar, you'd still be holding a Mason burger. You have to literally cut it out of the jar. But if you don't do that, if you cook it first, it turns into little tiny grainy. It's just, you can't eat it. So I put it in raw. Everything is raw. A little bit of salt. You can put spices in there, but I don't like to. If I want chili and I picked out a jar of hamburger that has taco seasoning, then I don't have the versatility. So I don't put spices in it except for salt. You can. It's not a big deal. Yes?
I was just going to ask on hamburger and you just answered.
Okay, any other questions on that? Glass top stoves, I used to tell people you probably don't want to cook on a glass top stove, but I have a glass top stove, probably cooked 300 pounds of meat on it. My sister back east has cooked 600 pounds on her glass top stove, no problems at all. So make that a decision of your own. If you are uncomfortable, then don't. You can use a little propane cooker out in your backyard and do it that way. If it doesn't seal, if you take the meat out, you use good jars. Buy new jars to start with. Make it just a little investment of saying, okay, I'm going to buy new jars, because if you get jars from DI or Grandma's Attic or something, they may have a little hairline crack and you'll open up your jar and you'll have all this meat floating in the water and it's really sad. So use good jars and then you can reuse them over and over and over, because you know where they came from and how many times they've been used. Let's see, if it doesn't seal, you take it out and one hasn't sealed, you have 2 options. You can have it for dinner tonight, or you can put a new ring and a lid on it and recook it. It'll be double cooked, but it's great for soup. Also, after Thanksgiving, sometimes you'll have a whole lot of turkey left over and you're thinking, you stick it in the freezer and you wait till a year later when it's turned different colors and then you throw it away. Just go ahead and can it. You can can already cooked meat. by putting a little liquid bouillon in it, little chicken bouillon or something like that. And it will be double processed. It's not a big deal. It's great for soup. Doesn't have the same texture as when it's fresh, but it still cooks and seals up beautifully. So you can, my husband went elk hunting, swore he was going to get an elk, so I cleaned out my freezer. It was like, 80 pounds of meat waiting for this huge elk. So we went out and bought some hamburger to fill the freezer. But I cooked everything that was in there. I just put it in jars, and it's beautiful. It doesn't have any, you can use anything with the exceptions of the things that I told you. All right. Cookers. I think we've covered everything on that. The book tells you what sizes are really good and what to get and what not to get. All right, let's go to, in your book, on your source page, page 20, A Bite of Independence. This is a book that is not published anymore, but the publisher I'm good friends with. I don't get any kickbacks on anything, so don't hesitate. Bite of Independence is a really great book on how to make everything from scratch. This is the kind of book that tells you how to make cream of mushroom soup. I didn't know you could make cream of mushroom soup. Little can costs 85 cents. If you do casseroles, if you have a lot of kids and you make casseroles, you're spending a lot of money on that little can of soup. You can make your own cream of mushroom soup with nothing but flour, soup base, some spices, and milk, and it costs like 15 cents for 2 quarts. And you make it fresh. You can cook it in the solar oven. So rather than storing cans of food that have a really short shelf life, you don't know how long they were in the store, you can have cream of mushroom soup in your cans that have 15 and 20-year shelf life. The things that, like flour, you grind that up, use white flour, white wheat, you grind that up, you use your other spices, and you've got a shelf life that went from 2 years to 15 or 20 years. Tomato soup, graham crackers, soy milk, peanut butter, enchilada sauce, chocolate cake, all the different things that you would want to have in your food storage rather than buying them ready-made and have a short shelf life, like a cake mix. You have your own recipe for a cake mix that uses flour, sugar, cocoa, salt, things that have a really long shelf life. So The Bite of Independence, if you have another book that gives you things from scratch, that's great. If not, this is a really good book for all those kinds of things. The book that you have has a lot of the recipes in it. It has graham crackers and tomato soup and cream of mushroom soup. So there's a lot of things in the book. Before you go out and buy this book, check the book that you've got and see if those things, the things that you might need, aren't already in there. There are things that I call sacred food. Wheat, beans, Crisco that comes in the metal top can, not the little pullback, but the Crisco in the old type. Those are sacred food. I'm never going to open those. Hopefully, 50 years from now, when I'm dead, my great-grandchildren will be going through my closets and going, "Oh, look at this wheat, how old it is." It costs you $1 every time you can a can of wheat. If you're making homemade bread all the time, just buy some wheat and put it in a bucket. Because every time you open that, you have to replace it. It's going to cost you another $1 to replace it. So things that have a really, really long shelf life, 15, 20 years, put those in the back of the closet, and 20 years from now, if we haven't used it, hopefully none of us will ever use it in the next 20 years, but if you haven't used it, then you can take it out. Your book will be all matted and who knows what it's going to look like, and you probably won't have any teeth to eat the food, but you're going to say, all right, it's probably still good, but if not, I'll replace it. So that's the things that really last a long time, I do not open. I'll just go buy fresh. Yes, sir?
I'm curious, how do you handle like pinto beans and the other types of beans? If you've had it 3 years, they're old. I mean, not that they taste bad, just that you can't cook them.
Pressure can them.
Okay, so you pressure can it in glass jars.
In the glass jars. Go online, put in pressure can pinto beans, and 500 websites will come up to tell you how to pressure can or how to pressure cook them.
I started in '96, and I probably have enough food storage for 10 years at least.
Same here.
And I tried cooking my pinto beans even with my pressure cooker. I could just, I cook pressure.
You know what? Beans are so cheap. Buy some new ones.
Well, but I don't want to lose the ones I've got stored.
I know. I've got that same attitude. I just can't throw anything away. Guy with a gun, they always talk about the guy with a gun who's going to come and take my food. He's going to get my soup mix, and You guys have eaten soup mix, haven't you? Yeah, he's going to get my red wheat because I love the white wheat. I have a hard time throwing anything away too. So the beans I would do pressure cook. Let's see, so that's, oh, honey is another thing that's sacred food. You can, and don't buy honey in those great big 5-gallon jars. Get them in the smaller things because you can put that in the solar oven and the heat will bring it back. You know how it gets crystallized? You can just heat that up in the solar oven and it's a really easy process. But a great big container, it's really hard to chunk that stuff out and try and reconstitute it. Yes?
Where can you find crystal in the middle top?
You can't. I bought it all. When I knew they were going to the foil top, I just went over to Costco and bought about 46-pound cases of it, and they just went to the foil top, and I'm really unhappy about that. But the good news is the foil top still has a 10-year shelf life, and that's not bad. So, and we carry the Crisco at the cannery, even in the cardboard container, still has, they say, a 10-year shelf life. So, you know, even the butter flavored, it's great. In fact, somebody remind me to talk about Crisco when we start talking about this. Because, in fact, I'll just tell you now, this little machine, I opened up one of my 6-pound, show you, one of my 6-pound jars of Crisco. It's called a jar vac. And because somebody said, oh, they don't last that long, and it was 5 years old. Opened it up, and it was beautiful. And I was really ticked to think that I'd opened up my sacred food just to prove a point. And then I'm looking at this 6-pound of Crisco, and I'm going, I am never going to eat 6 pounds of Crisco in 1 year because it's going to go bad. Once you open it, it's got 1 year, maybe not even that long. And so I'm looking at all this Crisco and I thought, hey, so I put it in the jars and I vacuum packed it, date it, and it's just like it's never been opened. It has its unlimited shelf life again. I've got Crisco now that's 3 years old that I jar vacked. And we'll talk about more of the jar vacuum, but just so you know that you can do Crisco. If you, in fact, you might want to take your Crisco or your butter flavor, whatever, take it out of the container and jar vac it for your own daily use. You open it up, you unseal it, you take out what you want, you seal it back up. It's just like it's never been opened. All right, let's see. We did spices.
Where do you get that machine?
Oh, I'll get there. Don't worry. Spices are going to make or break your food storage. You can have a bowl of beans, or you can have a bowl of chili, and it's all about spices. The place that I've written down here, if you've got another place, that's great, but if you don't, this is a wonderful place to go. It's called Saguaro Spices. It's like 35th Avenue and Indian School, so it's a little ways out. Maybe go in with some neighbors. They sell spices by the pound. That little tiny container of cinnamon in the store that costs you $3, this is a pound of cinnamon for $3. Do you know how big a pound of parsley is? Those of you who cook with parsley, it's like this big. You'll never use a pound of parsley. But spices, I'm giving spices a 10-year shelf life. They'll probably last longer, and a lot of people won't let spices go more than 6 months. I'm just not that big of a snob in my, I'm not that big of a gourmet. But they're so cheap. Go ahead and replace them. If you want to replace them every year or every 5 years, put whatever number you want on replacement for spices because they last a long time. Put them in a jar. Put the lid on it. Don't vacuum pack it. The vacuum pack, the fine powders will ruin your jar vac, so don't. Just put a lid on it and stick it in a box, mark your box, and shove it under the bed. And I gave my spices a 10-year shelf life. I should make it less because they're so cheap, but you do what you want on that. Spices just can't beat the per pound. Let's see. How many of you said you had your food storage? Raise your hands. How are you going to cook it? As long as you got a solar oven, you're set. Because everything else, you can have propane, but guys, it's illegal to have a 5,000-gallon propane in your backyard, and it's not safe. And it would take that to a year's supply of food. We don't have yards big enough for wood. Can you imagine going out there in 118-degree weather and starting the fire? The solar oven, I can't lift it because I'm all wired. I feel like I'm going to explode. But if somebody can lift this up for me. The solar oven is amazing. It is, okay guys, come on. You. Lift it up so they can see, because a lot of people have never seen a solar oven. This is the coolest toy I've ever had. I actually have 2 of them. Set this out in your backyard. Okay, thank you. That's all you had to do. Lift up the lid. You put your food in there. In 20 minutes, it's up to 250 degrees. In 30 minutes, it's up to 300 degrees. The hottest I got this thing was 345 degrees. I really wanted 350, but it wouldn't quite get there. So if somebody says it'll do 380 degrees, don't buy it. I've been doing this for a long time. This was the best one I've ever seen. I really like this one. In your book, it costs about $150. You go to survivalunlimited.com or some other places. I understand there's someone else bought one in this area, but it is about $150. I paid $250 for mine, and I bought 2 of them because I was so impressed. I wanted to cook dinner in one and do desserts in another. You can't start dinner at 5 o'clock, by the way. Not going to work. So get used to having your big meal in the middle of the day like our ancestors did, and then have something at dinner, you know, some kind of bread and milk or jam or something like that. It will cook anything. It bakes bread, it makes cinnamon rolls, it makes granola. I can do tapioca pudding and thicken it in the solar oven. I can make a cheese sauce or a cream sauce. I mean, everything. The only thing that I could not do in this solar oven was fry. I can't get the oil hot enough to fry. If you really have to have fried foods, that Indian fry bread just is not going to escape you. You'll want to look into a parabolic solar cooker. But if not, I don't have one because I'm just going, hey, you know, whatever. I can make cinnamon rolls and chocolate chip cookies. What else do I need? I can do it in this. So solar oven really is a must because you can have all the food in the world, but it really doesn't taste good to chew raw wheat. It just doesn't cut it when you can have homemade bread. Yes?
What kind of pans are...
It's in the book. The book tells you exactly what kind of cookware to get. Buy your oven first, and then your pans, because your oven, if you've got this lovely pan and the handles are too big, not much you can do about it. So, and it talks all about painting jars black and all kinds of fun ideas that you can do for cookware. Yes?
Will the solar oven work in cold climate?
It does not depend on how hot it is. It depends on whether the sun is shining. Now, I confess, when it's 122 degrees outside, it gets hotter faster. But it still gets to 45 degrees in the middle of winter as long as you're facing it towards the sun. It's all about the sun and the reflectors. You can cook in a solar oven in Alaska as long as the sun is shining. So for where we are, 364 and a half days of sunshine a year, this is perfect for us. And I really would, if you've got a big family, I'd get 2 because it takes about twice as long to cook. If bread takes 25 minutes, it takes about 45 minutes to cook bread. But it browns bread beautifully. It really, I've been so impressed with how the solar oven makes food just like my regular oven. It is an oven. All right, any other questions on the solar oven? Yes?
Is it easy to clean?
Yes. I've never cleaned mine. The pans are, yeah. If you spill in it, yeah, you know, you're going to have to get it out of the sun and clean it because it'll bake it on there. And it has a fairly fragile paint on the inside. And if you look at mine really close, you'll see that the paint peeled off. I preheated it without leaving a little crack open. So follow the instructions in the book. Yeah, if you don't spill things in it, there is no cleaning. You just open it up and take things out.
Is it stored compact? And now it's
It is like a suitcase. That thing folds up. I carried it in. It's just like a suitcase. It's no big. It's like a podium. You know, the podiums that you see in church. It's about that size and it has a handle. You could carry it with you on a 72-hour trek. If emergencies came up, this would be perfect to have. You grab some of your food and get your solar oven. You can sterilize water. All kinds of things can be done in your solar oven, and it's in the book. So we won't go any further. Unless there's really an important question, we'll move on from the solar oven. Get 1. Get 2. All right. All right. Somebody always asks, what happens when it rains? Because, you know, what do you do when it rains? You can't, if the sun's not shining, you can't cook in a solar oven. But when the sun is shining, you do this. And this was so cool. Let's see, 2003. So it's been 2 years ago. I spent most of the summer cooking out in my solar oven, making cool things like jar breads and jar cakes and jar brownies and jar muffins and jar cornbread. And the process is you cook the food without the ring and without the lid. You cook, this is a Ghirardelli chocolate fudge nut brownie. You cook it, put your batter in or your dough or whatever it is. The instructions are in the book. You cook it in your solar oven or your regular oven. If we have electricity, use your oven. Put it in there, you cook it. When it's all done, take it out, put a lid on it, put a ring on it, and within about 3 minutes, it's sealed. And it's fully cooked, ready to eat. And I ate breads, brownies, cakes, and cornbread that was 2 years old. Last July, I ate the last of my cornbreads that I made in July of 2003. Absolutely delicious. The more moist things were really good, like the applesauce cake was wonderful. The brownies were wonderful. Bread, you know, it was a little dry, but it was okay. Still bread. You could still toast it and put jam on it or something. Now, the idea here is not how old of a cake can I eat before I die. That's not what we're about. What we're about is on your sunny days, you go out and you bake your little hearts out. You make breads and cakes and cookies and brownies and cornbread, all kinds of muffins and blueberry muffins and all these things. And you have all this fully cooked food sitting on your shelves. And when that rainy day comes, you say, oh gosh, kids, I'm so sorry. We're going to have chocolate cake for dinner tonight and chicken sandwiches and, you know, whatever, because you've got fully cooked meat, fully cooked bread, fully cooked desserts, all sitting on your shelf. Now you might think, gee, you know, after a year, after a month, wouldn't it have food poisoning or wouldn't it be dangerous? Normally it would if you used eggs. We use Knox. Every recipe in the book has exchanged the eggs with Knox unflavored gelatin. And it can be a generic brand. In the book it tells you where to get it bulk. If you buy it bulk, it's about 3 cents an egg. And the process is in the book. It's so easy. You add a little cold water to a teaspoon of Knox. You add a little hot water, you stir it up, and it acts just like an egg. It raises brownies and cakes, and it thickens tapioca. It works wonderfully. And the good thing about this is, where powdered eggs have a really short shelf life and they're very expensive, this is, I call this unlimited. This is forever, and it's really cheap. I got this from a lady at the cannery. I asked somebody there who has some really old Knox, and she brought this, and I said, how old is it? And she said, well, I got it from my mother, and she's been dead for 17 years. So I don't know how long she had it, but it's really old because it doesn't come like this anymore. So we figure 20 years plus. We're looking at least a 20-year shelf life, and there was no special container at all. The little paper packets worked the same. So everything that I cooked with this really old Knox, and it worked beautifully. If you have somebody who's allergic to eggs, I would do this now, because your kids can have all kinds of things that they couldn't have before, because you can exchange the eggs with the Knox. All right, any questions about jar breads? Yes?
How does it come out of the jar?
Okay.
Spoon it out.
You want to use straight-sided jars. They're called jelly jars. If you can see this, it'll just pop right out. And that's really, and you put Crisco in it, and the instructions are really nice. Now, I guarantee if you have a chocolate cake in a jar that has a neck like this and it won't come out, if you give a kid a fork, he'll find a way to get it out. So don't worry about what kind of jar you put it in. You know, Andy, fill your jars with food. So no problem there. All right, any other questions?
Okay, I noticed that the jars that you're using are unlaid pint that I can see. Is there a reason for that, or can you use quart?
Yeah, because the pints are easier to carry, and when I drag all this stuff in, the quart jars get really heavy. That's the only reason. You can put it in quart jars. If you know those big pickled, no, you can't do the pickle jars because they don't have the kind of screw-on lid. Any kind of jar that has this kind of lid, the canning lid, any size jar will work just fine. And like I say, the straight-sided is nice, but straight-sided jars are nice, but you don't have to use that. Yes?
So breads are the only things that you can safely can in an oven, and they will seal as long as you don't put eggs in.
Breads, cakes, cookies.
Bread ready.
Baking, all your bakery things, yes. Yeah, you can't do chicken, you can't do any of that kind of stuff. Just the baking items. That's why it's called jar cakes. Jar cakes, cornbread is wonderful. The recipe in the book is a really good cornbread recipe. All right, see if I've forgotten anything. Breads, brownies, muffins, cakes, cornbread, cookies. Cookies are a little difficult because, you know, it's so thick, but it still works. It'll still go for you. Let's see. Covered all that. Yeast will last indefinitely if you put it in your freezer. Even those vacuum-packed ones, keep them in your freezer, as much yeast as you're going to need, and you'll know exactly how much that is because you would have put it on your list. Every time you needed a teaspoon of yeast, you put it on your list. Keep it in the freezer. Outside of the freezer, it has a 1-year shelf life. So figure that's what we've been told to get, a year supply. Just keep it in your freezer and you should have it forever. White wheat is a hybrid kind of wheat that a lot of people, including myself, really like. Red wheat, the turkey red hard wheat, is a little heavy for me. It's a little, the texture, the taste, it's just a little heavy. I'm a white bread fan, and can't do white bread because that's not good for you. White wheat is kind of our little blessing that the white wheat or the white bread fans got. It's hybrid, but it has all of the nutritional value, the moisture content, the cost is the same. The only difference between the turkey red hard and the white wheat is whether or not you like a lighter texture, lighter flavor, lighter color, everything. It's almost like you've taken whole wheat bread flour and white flour and mixed them half and half. So if you're not a wheat fan, or if you have allergies to wheat, a lot of people have fewer allergies with this kind of wheat. I'm just not a real whole wheat fan until I got to the white wheat, and it is really, really good. So try that. You can't exchange it in your 1-month kits. If you want white wheat, you have to go down and can it because it's not an exchange item. Yes?
I heard that the white wheat doesn't last as long as the red.
Not true. Not true. Yep, it has the same shelf life. There's no reason for it to have a shorter shelf life. It's got the same moisture content and the same nutritional content, everything about it. And we're talking 25 years. So if it lasts 23 years and somebody's nitpicking, I'm still giving it a really long shelf life, and it goes in the back with my sacred food. Yes?
The spelt, which is a white, looks like wheat, but it's longer grain, that is what they took out of the pyramids.
And that's what lasted. Yeah, they found wheat in the pyramids that still sprouted. So I give wheat a really long shelf life. I don't like wheat, like a bowl of wheat, a bowl of cereal. It's just not in my food storage. If I'm having wheat, I'm grinding it up and I'm making cinnamon rolls or homemade bread. So wheat is definitely in my food storage, but just depends on how you want to use it. Get a wheat grinder. Doesn't do you any good to have wheat if you don't have a grinder. And the one that I have in the book is countrylivinggrains.com. It's in the book. But the reason I got it, it's the largest wheat grinder they make. Brother Rogers, didn't you say you had one of those?
It's great.
It is wonderful. The only problem is it's about $350, but it is the largest one they make. It grinds anything. And the reason I like it is because if you email the guy that you buy it from, he will send you directions on how to hook it up to a bicycle, a stationary bicycle, and you can ride your bike and grind your wheat. So I thought that was kind of a cool idea. And if you've ever done this, trying to get 18 cups of flour, you're going to really want a larger grinder. The last thing I have here is this cool toy called the Denny Jar Vac. And it tells you in the book where to get it. I'll tell you right off the bat, it's going to be about $55, $60, depending wherever you get it. It will cost $90 elsewhere, but go to the book. I can't remember where it is. QVC.com, and shipping and everything should be about $55. If you don't do anything else in this class, you're going to want this. Even if you don't believe in food storage, if you're here because your wife made you come and you think it's ridiculous, get one of these because you will not believe the absolute how much fun this toy is. And it will save you a lot of money. What you're going to do, okay, first off, if you have a food saver, anybody have a food saver? If you've already got a food saver, then you don't need to buy one of these. You can get something called a jar sealer. Get online, everythinghome.com, and it's a little toy, a little contraption that goes over the top of your lid, and it sucks out the air using your food saver. If it has the port on the top of it, a little hole on the top, and a little rubber tube comes out of it, and then this attachment, you can do the same thing that I'm going to talk about. If you don't have a food saver, don't bother getting one. This is better. It does more, and it's easier. If you called, let me find my note. If you called Salt Lake and said, can I store raisins or nuts or cornmeal or brown rice or chocolate chips or dried fruits or sesame seeds or butter or peanut butter? They'd say, no, you can't store those. They're high sugar, high oil content, they go bad. I mean, you've all gone in the pantry, ladies, to get walnuts to put in your chocolate chip cookies, and they're rancid. You've gone to get chocolate chips, and they've gone white or powdery, or it just goes bad, especially in Arizona. We've all done that. How much food have we wasted? We have... These are chocolate chips that were stored on the same day. This is over July of '03, so these are 2-year-old chocolate chips. 2 months after I stored these, they started turning white. If you'll notice, it's just a nasty white powder because the seal came undone. So 2 years later, this chocolate chips are still absolutely perfect. You can open it up. Listen. Open it up. Take out what you want. Put the lid back on. Seal it back up. Put it in your little Denny jar back. And it's just like it had never been opened. You have indefinite. We have chocolate chips that are 15 years old. We have raisins that are 20 years old. Granted, the raisins are a little sugary. But you know what the raisins would look like after 20 years if you didn't have them sealed up? Yes, question?
Do they go any further, the chocolate chips?
Yeah, they turn white. Why bother? And takes up room in your freezer. You seal them up with your jar vac. You've got a 15, maybe 20-year shelf life. Why bother with the freezer? Stick it in the box, shove it under the bed, no problem. The different things that I talked about that can be sealed are going to make your food storage. This is where it always gets everybody's going, because it's so exciting. You're just going, you mean I can store after Halloween last year? Yeah, you know, huh? My husband's not here. Oh, taping this. Cut the tape. I bought 30 or 40 pounds of Snickers and Baby Ruth and all my favorite candy bars. I put them in the quart jars because they held more, stacked them in, already still wrapped, I stacked them in there and stuffed them in and put them in and sealed it up. Man, I had candy for a week. It was just... They're still good. I opened one up the other day. My grandkids came over and I passed out candy. Absolutely just like the day I bought them. A year later. Yes?
When you reseal those chocolate chips, you use the same...
Same lid over and over and over. Open it carefully so that you don't bend it, dent it, or anything. You can use that lid over and over and over. That's the cool part about this is with a can of food, once you open it, it's done. You have to use it. With this, you just seal it back up. Put more in it, seal it back up, take it out, whatever. It's amazing. It's the coolest thing because you will never have nuts or raisins or poppy seeds or sesame seeds. Nothing goes bad. I can't even tell you what the shelf life is on a lot of this stuff because we've never had anything go bad. We've been doing it for 20 years and we only realized like 10 years ago how cool this was. You know, we had some things that had been, my sister gave her niece, her daughter, my niece, some raisins and they were still in a cupboard someplace. Those are the ones that were 20 years old. And she said, yeah, she opened it up and she said they were a little grainy. They'd kind of gone sugary, but they were still good. She put them in chocolate or oatmeal cookies and they were delicious. So I don't know what the shelf life is, but I know it's at least 10, 15 years.
Can you use those PET containers?
Has to be glass jars and metal lids with the gasket. That's the only thing it will seal. It won't do any plastic. Yes? Yes, that's how I do my brown sugar. Put them in the jars. Although, you know, you don't have to. You can put brown sugar in the buckets. It shouldn't go bad. I'm going to give it maybe 5 years. You could put them in the buckets. And even though it goes hard, chunk some out and put a little bread in it and it comes right back. Brown sugar is resilient like honey. All right, the other cool thing about this.
Here's the question.
Yes?
How tightly do you crank the
Oh, thank you. Don't crank the lid really hard because then it won't be able to seal. I got a call from New Jersey, of all places. I'm going, I've never been to New Jersey. How'd you get my number? That was funny, but she had the book and she was using it and she said it won't seal. And we finally discovered they were putting the lids on too tight before they put it in the jar vac. Now, a quart jar will fit. Yes, see this is a spaghetti jar. The cool thing about this is any glass jar with its original metal lid can be resealed with this. You can't do that with the food saver. But the jar vac, baby food jars, spaghetti jars, hot sauce jars, and start saving your glass jars and their original lids because you put stuff in it and you seal it up and it's good to go. How many of you have taken out a jar of spaghetti sauce, ragu, and you pour out half of it and you make your dinner, you stick the other in the refrigerator, and you come back in a couple weeks and there's more there than when you put it in? You might think this was a good thing. Normally, having more would be good. This is not a good thing. You don't want this to happen. Put it jar, after you take out what you want. When I got mine, I emptied my refrigerator and I resealed everything. My garlic, my hoisin sauce, my spaghetti sauce, my hot sauces, everything. I sealed it all up. 3 months later, it was still exactly like it was. It was still fresh. 3 months later, in the refrigerator. please, if it belongs in the refrigerator, keep it in the fridge. If it belongs on the shelf, put it on the shelf. So if you're canning chocolate chips, it'll go on the shelf. If you're resealing spaghetti sauce or hot sauce or something that would normally go in the refrigerator, put it in the refrigerator. And you will not have food go bad. It's amazing. It'll pay for itself just in not having spoiled food. Someone had a question? Nope. Let's see. Peanut butter, shortening. I talked a little bit about that. This is butter, and I sealed this last year, and I have some butter and margarine that is 2 years old, going on 3 years. And you clean the lid really well, clean the rim really well. Just put anything, butter, margarine, shortening, seal it in your jar vac, date it, and it sits on the shelf. And you might go, huh? Your grandmothers never put refrigerated their butter. It always sat on the counter. And I'm over 50, and I remember my grandmother a long time ago, back in the days when they had an ice box. They kept their butter on the counter. You didn't have to refrigerate it. We just do. This does not have to be refrigerated. You can store butter and margarine and Crisco and butter-flavored Crisco, any of that stuff, and it sits on the shelf. Don't put it in the garage. Any questions?
What about oil?
I haven't done oil. Every recipe in the book, I've exchanged oil with shortening, because shortening has a really long shelf life. Oil has a really short shelf life. And I figure I've already got 10 years in that container. If I buy oil and put it in the jars, I'm going to have to use the jar and go through the whole process. So I don't use oil. I know there are some people who are really hooked on the virgin oil or blah, 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 whatever it is. I just never did. I'm not that fussy of a cook. And so everything's been exchanged with shortening, and that's just fine with me. I melt it in the solar oven and use it just like oil because of the long shelf life. So even the church has exchanged. If you notice, the 1-month kits don't have oil in them anymore. They have shortening because it does have a long shelf life. Yes? There are two ways. You can, in California, my counterpart in California said that they were putting jars of peanut butter in cans, throwing a couple oxygen packets in it and sealing it up, and they were going on 5 years. They had a 5-year shelf life. Problem is you can't get very many jars of peanut butter in a number 10 can. I'm finding that if you take it out of its jar and put it in, once you open it, then go ahead and transfer it into a quart jar and seal it up. You should be able to expand that shelf life. Peanut butter has, what, a 1-year shelf life? Once you open it, maybe not even that long. So, most of them come in a plastic container, and it's very permeable. It just doesn't keep the air out. It's hard to find anything in a glass container anymore. So transfer it into the glass container, seal it up, should have, I'm guessing, 3-4 year shelf life, maybe longer.
In that thing?
In the jar vac. Yes.
Have you tried homemade cheese?
Oh, tell me about it.
Well, I like it the first day it comes out of the press because it's real squeaky. Have you tried to put it in there and so every
You
day,
make homemade cheese?
every day it's squeaky?
I always feel so unworthy when I do these classes because, you guys are here because you're interested in it. You probably know more than I do anyway, but, here's somebody who makes homemade cheese. No, I don't make homemade cheese. I've never tried putting it in a jar. I do know if you put cheese, regular cheese, like the cruddy stuff from the store, it will go in a jar and it will extend that shelf life. I keep my cheese in the freezer. That's probably bad, but I do know, and I found this out last year, that Kraft makes a canned cheese. Go online and see if you can look it up with Kraft. It's a yellow cheese tasting type thing, like a cheddar cheese, a mild cheddar cheese. It's more of a white color. But I think it's a 1-pound can, and we're looking at a 5-year shelf life. So this is the first time that I have found anything that will store cheese for any length of time, a hard cheese, like when you want a great cheese on your enchiladas or your tacos or something. So that's where I would go for the cheese. Any other questions?
So can you put cheese in it?
You can put it in the jar vac, yeah. Yeah, just cut it into smaller pieces and put it in your jar and seal it up. It lasts much longer. A lot of things, you can do a lot of things with it. It actually comes with a cool little attachment here. I don't use it, I feel like I'm the Veggie Vita, whatever that Lucy, I Love Lucy thing. Only old people would remember that. Yeah, thank you. Has this cool little attachment, and it has metal lids with rubber underneath it. And you can put that over a metal or a jar, glass bowl of some kind, a round bowl. You put that on it, and you put this on it, and it will suck the air out of the bowl and seal this lid onto the bowl. So that if you have a green salad or a fruit salad, or if you're marinating meat, it will actually, if you poke holes, it will suck the marinade into the meat because of the pressure. It's a great little toy. It comes with 3 size lids, so that if you get one of these, you'll know what those lids are for. Fruit salad, you make a fresh fruit salad, it'll last for days. So that's another little addition to it. What else? Any other questions? I think we're about done.
If we talk honestly about powdered milk.
You don't want an honest answer about powdered milk. Powdered milk is powdered milk. There's nothing we can do about it. It's nasty. We hate it. I don't drink it. You know, they say eat what you store and store what you eat. That means except for powdered milk. If you have real milk, don't drink powdered milk. Store powdered milk. Drink the real stuff. All I do with powdered milk is cook with it, and it works just fine. It doesn't make a big difference when you're cooking with it. But I would never drink powdered milk. It's just awful. So, yes? DI, if you're buying it for jar cakes and jar vac stuff, DI sells them for $1. Go to yard sales, grandma's attic, whatever. If you're looking for the jars for meats, we sell them at the cannery, and they're as cheap as they get, with the exception of Big Lots. You know, Big Lots will sell them. I think they're 50 cents a jar or something like that. So those are the 2 places that I found. And we carry quart and pint, but we don't carry wide mouth. And Big Lots will carry the wide mouth. So those are your 2 places for the cheapest. In season, sometimes Walmart will carry them, but they're usually more expensive. All right. Any other questions?
Powdered milk.
Yes?
I'm not an expert, but my mother used to, it's not a perfect solution, my mother used to go out and buy, when she's ready to rotate it, she'd buy whole milk and mix it half and half. And that way, that's what we drink. It wasn't too bad.
She was trying to make the whole milk stretch. If we're in a worst case scenario, we won't have whole milk, and we're going to have to drink it. You know, that's why I say I don't have any whole milk in my food storage as far as drinking. You know, I got the chocolate. What is it? No, the orange drink and the hot chocolate. Those are my drinks. But the powdered milk is simply for cooking, and I have a lot of powdered milk because I do a lot of cooking with it. Not tapioca, no, the different things, all the different things that I cook with. But drinking, you know, and they found that kids don't really need as much milk as we thought they did. So, you know, you use your own judgment on that, how much milk you think your kids are going to drink. I'd love to see you make your kids drink powdered milk. Any other questions? I appreciate your coming, brothers and sisters. Like I said, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
That's all right. That's what I'm here for.
I have this sweet that's like 20 years old, and when I cracked open a bucket, you know, it was stored with the dry ice, I think is what they had done.
Oh, it's the buckets. Don't use buckets. We get bucket food all the time, and it's always gone bad, so use cans. But anyway.
Well, it's buckets, and I've got several hundred pounds of this, but I opened it up, and clinging from static cling were just little shells of weevils, but there were no live weevils. There were just a few of those little shells, and I mean, what do you do? Just grind it up and nobody knows?
Did you hear her say that? What do you do? Just grind it up and nobody knows? Personally, I would buy new wheat because wheat is cheap. It's one of the cheap things. If this was your chocolate chips, I would be feeling really sad for you because, you know, it's chocolate. But this is wheat. Go buy some new wheat. Go buy some new wheat. Toss it. If I see shells in there, I guarantee the bugs are there. They were there. Those are their grandchildren, you know, somewhere in there that are just waiting. Get some new wheat.
You can pour it over a fan with a fan blowing the blow and stuff out.
Oh, really?
And shoot the fan to your neighbor's house. Question?
Where do you store your water?
That's just the coolest thing I've ever seen. That right there. I'm going to use that in every class that I do. I think that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. You throw it out every 6 months. Conference comes, in between conference sessions, empty out the water, put in some new. You know, that's about it. You empty it out twice a year. In the book, it tells you how many teaspoons of bleach to put in it, but I've never seen anything that is more ingenious than that. And it doesn't take up very much space. You'll have to store water, brothers and sisters. You know, you can have all the food in the world, but if you don't have any water, you're going to have no way to cook it, unless everything is, you know, meat and breads and ready cooked things, but you're going to need water. Yes?
Where do you get the barrels?
Where did you get your barrels? Because I got mine 15 years ago. I don't know where to get them anymore.
There's a number of places here in town to get them, and there's a sign-up sheet back there for people interested in barrels.
There you go.
And once we have a count for how many people may be interested, we'll negotiate a price.
And those of you who are still having trouble with the word of wisdom, you can go to the Coke and Pepsi things, and sometimes it still tastes a little bit like that. You can, you know, get your fix. Yes?
Don't throw your wheat away.
Okay.
I'll go put my number somewhere, call me. My cows love it.
Yeah, okay, the pigs and the cows and...
Cannery calls me all the
Yeah,
time.
my homeowners won't let us have pigs and cows, so, you know, we'll give them to you. Yes? Don't store in buckets. If it's already in buckets, what we're finding is people are coming to the cannery a lot with the buckets because they'll open it up and find that the food has not lasted. The buckets are plastic. They're just permeable. There's no way to get around it. You know, the metal is going to be better. If it's already in buckets, you might want to check it, and you might want to transfer it into cans before it does go bad. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have lots and lots of buckets myself. Yes?
For water, can we store it without the chlorine if we decide to, if we're going to? What was that?
How often would you have to rotate water if you don't put the chlorine in it?
I have 3,000 gallon tanks.
Where do you guys live?
And it'll last a year in there because it's black and it's UV protected and it inhibits the growth, algae growth. It'll last a whole year.
But 55 gallons,
No.
not going to last a year. Without bleach, do you think you could go 3 months?
Easily.
Okay, all right, there's the expert. I am not the expert on water. I have a little tiny thing like that of water because it would take forever to cover water in the desert. All I'm going to tell you is you have to have it. Yes?
I would say, why not use the bleach?
I think sometimes the taste that people get a little, the taste isn't real good.
I store 55 gallons around and use a quarter cup of liquid in it, so it's powdered, it's poison.
Right. I don't even think it, yeah. And you could boil it in your solar oven to kind of get rid of the taste if you wanted to do some of that, but you know, yes.
Would you repeat what you said here?
Gee, I wish I could.
You said
A quarter cup of bleach. Whatever's in the book, that's what I suggest. I don't think it's as much as a quarter cup. He was saying he doesn't taste it. I usually do. I'm not real fond of it, but you know, people in New Orleans would have loved to have had a 55-gallon barrel of bleach with of water with a quarter cup of bleach. Back in the back.
You know how long water bottles will last? Just by Sam's Club?
Don't, unless it says PETA on the bottom, don't store water in milk jugs and that kind of stuff because they will deteriorate and crack and you'll have this really ugly water stain on the top of your ceiling if you have put it up in your second story. Want to ask me how I know that?
You're not supposed to can meat, and you're not supposed to put it in a plastic container. What kind of metal container are you supposed to use?
I'm not supposed to can meat? Wheat. No, you do can wheat. Can wheat. Don't put it in plastic buckets. Sugar. Don't can sugar. Yeah, wheat definitely put in the cans. It has a really long shelf life. It's just, you know, indestructible almost. That's a really great way to, anything that you can store at the cannery, anything that they store, put in cans, because that's a good way to store things. It's safe, it's clean, it's, you know, it stacks easily, everything about it is good. But there are a lot of things that you can't put in cans, like chocolate chips and raisins and other things that we have to store in different ways. Any other questions?
How do you best store pasta?
In the cans. Yeah, in the cans. This is personal, but I don't particularly like the pasta, the spaghetti from the cannery. It's too thick. So you might want to, if you found that, don't buy 200 pounds of something that you haven't tried just because it's on your list. You know, you might be unhappy about that. So be sure and test things first. Yes?
Where did you say to get the solar oven?
It's in the book. Survival Unlimited. It's on your source page. Solar ovens at the bottom of page 20. Got it? Any other questions? It always takes an hour and a half. Isn't that amazing? I love it. Brothers and sisters, thank you for coming. I really do love doing this. You know, sometimes I'm thinking, oh my gosh, because it's all over the place and 5-6 times a month, and yet every time I do it, I feel a spirit that just it lifts me, it makes me glad that I'm doing something. Hopefully it was something that has inspired you. That's my calling, is to motivate and inspire you. If anything here has inspired you that you would like to use and get your food storage, then my time has been well spent. I know the church is true, brothers and sisters. I know the prophets have never given a prophecy that is not going to be fulfilled. Every bad thing that you've ever read, this will be the most horrible time in the history of the world. I mean, there's been a lot of history and a lot of it's really bad. It's going to be worse than anything that's ever happened. I'll tell you what, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And the church has far too long been ignoring the prophecies and the counsel of the prophets. I pray, brothers and sisters, that you will feel the Spirit, that you will have a desire to be prepared and to follow the counsel of the prophets. And if you use anything here, that's great. If you get the 1-month kits, get 12 of them. Whatever it takes to make sure that your family will survive whatever may happen. And if nothing happens, man, we should get down on our knees and thank our Father in heaven that we have lived through a time that has been such a blessing in our lives. I hope we don't go through hard times, but somebody's going to. And if you're not getting food storage, you're teaching your children not to get it. And they'll teach their children. And it'll go all down those lines. If you are a believer in it and you teach your children it's important, you will save generations. If it never happens to you or your children, somewhere down the line, you will have a direct effect on keeping those children alive and saving them to bring forth Zion. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. I broke everything.